Sometimes you don't need to commit a crime. The system will create one for you. And today one man's life is about to change forever, for a crime he never committed. A sleek black van screeched to a halt in front of a luxurious mansion. Security cameras flickered, capturing the frantic struggle of a young woman inside. Her mouth was taped shut, her wrists tightly bound. She twisted violently, her muffled screams lost in the night. The van's side door slid open, and a towering figure yanked her inside with brute force. Rachel Morrison, the only daughter of billionaire Henry Morrison, was being taken. The van sped off, weaving through dimly lit streets before vanishing into the darkness. The security footage? Blurry. Faces? Unrecognizable. By sunrise, news stations exploded. Billionaire's daughter kidnapped. Police scanners buzzed with urgency.
All units be advised. Suspect identified. Black male, early 30s, wearing dark clothing. Last seen near the abduction site. Proceed with caution.
The search began. Patrol cars combed the streets. Reports were cross-checked. But without concrete evidence, one name surfaced as the prime suspect: Darius Cole. That morning, Darius Cole stepped out of a small neighborhood store, a steaming coffee cup in one hand and his phone in the other. Exhausted from his overnight shift, he scrolled through his messages, barely paying attention to the quiet streets. And then, everything changed. Screeching sirens, tires screeching, flashing red and blue lights. 4 police cruisers surrounded him within seconds.
Hands in the air, now!
Darius froze. His heart pounded violently.
What? What's happening? What did I do?
Don't even think about running. You're on camera, buddy.
Darius barely had time to react before a police officer lunged at him, shoving him onto the pavement. His coffee cup slipped from his fingers, crashing onto the sidewalk as steaming liquid splattered across the concrete. The cold bite of handcuffs snapped around his wrists. People gathered around, phones raised, recording.
This is a mistake. I was just walking home. You've got the wrong guy.
They all say that. Let's go, tough guy.
Within hours, headlines screamed across every screen. Kidnapper caught. News stations broadcasted footage of Darius's arrest, looping it over and over. His face was everywhere.
Our investigation has led us to a primary suspect who was spotted near the crime scene. We are confident that justice will be served.
The internet erupted. Look at him. He's definitely guilty. Check his record. He's been in trouble before. You don't mess with the rich and get away with it. Darius's life was already decided, by people who had never met him. But there was one question no one had bothered to ask. But did anyone stop to ask? Was it really him? The media and police dig into Darius's past. But is he really guilty? Sometimes the truth doesn't matter. What matters is what people choose to believe. And today, the justice system is about to decide Darius Cole's fate. The heavy wooden doors creaked open. The courtroom buzzed with hushed murmurs as people flooded in. Reporters occupied the front row, their cameras flashing in rapid succession, illuminating the tension in the air. Darius Cole sat at the defendant's table, his wrists free of cuffs, but still bearing red marks from their grip. He looked exhausted. Dark circles clung beneath his eyes, his face etched with a mix of fear and defiance. Beside him, his attorney, Olivia Carter, gripped her case files tightly. Across from them, Prosecutor Thomas Riley exuded confidence, placing a thick folder onto his desk with an air of finality.
Court is now in session.
The prosecution goes on the attack.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we are not just trying a man, we are examining his past. This man's record is not clean. This is not his first offense.
A murmur rippled through the jury. Some took notes, their eyes narrowing in suspicion.
Do you know how many times Darius Cole has been arrested? Drug possession, assault, petty theft? And yet, every time, he walked free due to lack of evidence. How many times can one man get lucky?
Darius clenched his jaw. His fists tightened against the table. Olivia noticed and lightly touched his arm, silently telling him to hold back. Olivia strikes back.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are not here to judge Darius Cole's past. We are here because the police arrested him without any concrete evidence.
Sounds like the typical excuse, doesn't it? I'm innocent, but always in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Darius speaks for the first time.
Do you know when I realized I could never escape my past? Every time a cop stopped me, every time I applied for a job, every time I stepped onto a bus. That night I was in that neighborhood because I was going home.
The room fell into an eerie silence. Some jury members shifted uncomfortably. A few averted their gaze. Prosecutor Riley reached into his pocket, pulled out a USB drive, and plugged it into the courtroom's large screen. The footage began playing, grainy, black and white. A masked figure dragging Rachel Morrison toward a van. The man's height, build, and skin tone, identical to Darius Cole. A wave of gasps spread through the courtroom. The jury leaned in, eyes locked onto the screen. Olivia frowned, staring at the footage intently. She hit pause. Frame by frame, she analyzed the footage. And then, she saw it. A tiny but crucial detail. Something was wrong. Sometimes evidence tells the truth, but sometimes it only looks like the truth. Olivia spots a flaw in the security footage. Could this evidence have been manipulated? The truth isn't always right in front of us. Sometimes you have to know where to look. But what if they don't want us to look? Olivia Carter sat at the defense table, gripping her tablet tightly. Her sharp eyes scanned the security footage over and over again. Something was off. The man in the video resembled Darius Cole, but he wasn't identical. The details didn't add up. The way he walked was different, and most importantly, he was wearing a wristwatch.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all watched this video carefully, correct? Now, let me ask you a simple question. Darius Cole never wears a watch, but the man in this footage clearly has one on his wrist.
A wave of silence spread through the courtroom. The jury exchanged confused glances. Prosecutor Riley's expression tensed. He hadn't expected this.
Miss Carter, people change their outfits. They add accessories. Just because the suspect is wearing a watch doesn't prove he's innocent.
Olivia smirked slightly. She had him right where she wanted him. She turned back to the jury, paused the video, and zoomed in on the suspect's wrist.
This is not Darius. And if the entire case is based on this video, then what if this video isn't real?
The courtroom erupted into whispers. Jurors murmured amongst themselves. Some scribbled notes furiously. Riley clenched his jaw, glancing quickly toward the officers in the room. But Olivia noticed something. The tension on their faces. The way the police chief looked away. This was bigger than just a mistake. Someone was covering something up. Seated at the defense table, Darius stared at the paused video on the screen. For the first time since his arrest, he felt like he might actually have a chance. The courtroom doors swung open. A digital forensics expert, Eric Lawson, stepped in. In his hand, a USB drive. Sometimes it takes a fresh set of eyes to see the truth. And today, those hiding the truth are about to be exposed. Can Olivia prove the video was manipulated? Or will the system continue to bury the truth? Sometimes, evidence doesn't speak for itself. It speaks for the ones who created it. Digital forensics expert Eric Lawson turned to the jury, his grip tightening around the folder in his hands. Olivia Carter's eyes locked onto him. This could change everything.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I have here the original unaltered security footage that was never submitted to this court.
A wave of murmurs spread through the courtroom. Jurors leaned forward, eyes fixed on Lawson's hands. Prosecutor Riley stiffened. For the first time, a crack in his composure showed. The power dynamic in the room was shifting. Taking a deep breath, Olivia stepped up beside Eric. The large courtroom screen flickered to life. Two versions of the same security footage played side by side.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are now watching two different videos. One is the footage presented by the prosecution. The other is the original untouched recording.
In the original video, the suspect's wrist was bare. In the prosecution's version, the suspect was wearing a watch. Prosecutor Riley's face twitched. He turned sharply to the police chief, but the officer averted his gaze. Darius sat frozen, his chest rising and falling as hope took shape. Olivia stepped forward, eyes piercing through each juror one by one.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now proven that this evidence was tampered with, so I ask you just one thing. Who is the real criminal here?
His fists clenched. His knuckles turned white as he pressed his palms against the table.
It doesn't matter how you got this footage. Darius Cole is still a criminal. His past speaks for itself.
A small, knowing smirk formed on Olivia's lips. She leaned down, placing both hands firmly on the prosecution's table, locking eyes with Riley.
Tell me, Mr. Riley, is my client the only one here with a questionable past? Or is someone in this courtroom manipulating justice for their own gain?
Jurors whispered among themselves. One juror shook his head disapprovingly. Riley glanced toward the police chief, and in that moment, it was clear. This was bigger than just one man. The courtroom doors creaked open. The court clerk stepped inside. He carried a sealed document and handed it to the judge. Justice may stay silent, but the truth never will. The jury is about to deliver its verdict. Will Darius walk free, or will the system bury the truth once again? Justice may be delayed, but it can never be silenced. The courtroom held its breath. The jury forewoman stood, gripping the verdict paper.
This court finds the defendant, Darius Cole, not guilty of all charges.
Applause erupted. Darius's eyes filled with tears. Olivia let out a small smile. Jurors nodded in agreement. Reporters rushed to break the news. The courtroom doors swung open. A police officer stepped inside, holding a thick case file.
Your Honor, new evidence has surfaced. The real criminal has been identified.
A shockwave spread through the courtroom. Prosecutor Riley's face turned pale. Judge Calloway furrowed his brows. Darius Cole, for the first time, truly felt free. Riley slammed his fist on the table.
This is outrageous. The evidence was clear.
But no one believed him anymore. The system had tried to frame an innocent man and failed. Darius's first taste of freedom. The officer unlocked his handcuffs. Darius looked down at his wrists, breathing deeply. For the first time, he was truly free. Justice isn't always found in a courtroom, but the truth can never be erased. Darius looked at Olivia, eyes full of gratitude, but he knew the truth. This fight was far from over.